we're international Shatnez expert.
Yes, international Shatnez expert, Rabbi Yaakov Gurwitz.
Yeah, we're doing a take or it's on already?
Is joining us today.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Rabbi Gurwitz is a Shatnez expert, and today, you guys remember when Rabbi Binyamin Grossman gifted me this Zara jacket. Well, today we're going to find out, have I been sinning this whole time or not?
No.
Rabbi Gurwitz, please introduce yourself and a little bit about your background.
Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Baruch Hashem, I came today, Erev Rosh Hashanah, at Or Sameach in Yerushalayim, and we're checking Shatnez. We gave a lecture to the boys that they should know what needs to be checked, and a little bit of a history, the background about the mitzvah of Shatnez. And Shatnez is one of those mitzvahs that is not so popular. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misconceptions floating around, and people think, I bought it from a religious store. They probably won't be selling Shatnez, but it's really not true. We have an international network of Shatnez testers, over 300 testers in 120 cities worldwide. The headquarters is in Lakewood, in New Jersey. I run the branch in Eretz Yisrael and in Europe. And Baruch Hashem, we have Talmidim and students around the world who are testers. And Baruch Hashem, it's a very complicated field as far as you always have to be up on the latest of the technology of textiles. It's a constantly changing world. It depends on trends, social markets, and every little thing could change, make a difference. Because if you have one thread of wool in a linen garment or linen in a wool garment, it's already Shatnez. It's not like milk and meat. It's put milk in a chicken soup and you stir it and it's bottle in 60, it's nullified. It's not like that. If you have one thread of linen in the wool suit, come back 10 years later, it's still there. So on a regular standard suit, there are over, in a regular pair of pants or trousers, there's over 15 strategic places that need to be tested. And in a jacket, there's over 50 locations that need to be tested. And there's over 100 types of materials in a regular standard men's suit jacket. So men's suit jackets always need to be tested. Besides that, we have a couple of basic rules. The first of the rules is we read the label, and we don't rely on the label because very often they're inaccurate. But it's an indication. If it says wool, number one, we check for linen. If it says number two, linen or flax, the flax plant produces linen threads. If it has wool or linen, then we check it for wool. Check it in the laboratory. Rule number three, if it says other fibers, or mixed fibers, sometimes abbreviated OF or MF, so they're telling you it's a mixture. They may crush up materials, make padding out of it. That also should be checked. And then the last rule is if you have an irregular weave. So a regular piece of linen is something that's an irregular weave. If you actually hold it up to the light, you can see sometimes an irregular, every 5 or 10 threads, one is a little bit thicker than the other in both directions. So this is called a linen look material. If it has a little bit of linen, so it should be checked to make sure that there's no wool. Even if it doesn't say on the label, it might have, by international law, less than 5% does not need to be listed on the label. So if it has a linen look, assume there's at least a small percentage of linen, and then like rule number two, then we have to check it to make sure that there's no wool. So those are the 4 rules: wool, linen, other fibers, or linen look material. Men's suits, you always have to check. Even if it's 100% polyester suit, it's possible to have a wool felt behind the collar, and it's reinforced with a piece of linen to strengthen the back of the collar. Also, under the suit, there's all kinds of, since linen is a strong type of material, if it might be around the armhole, scrap materials, around the pockets, or different strategic places where you need to strengthen. So that's why we have to check. The actual method of checking itself is, it does not destroy the garment. What I do is we have a little seam ripper in this case over here, and what I'm going to do is just make a little incision right on the seam. Afterwards I'll sew it up again, so it will not affect, the garment. And from this little opening over here, just enough to get my hand inside, I'll be able to get to the entire inside of the suit jacket. And I'm just opening up a couple of stitches. Now, there's different methods of identifying. One is called Tvias Ayin, which is just by sight. We're trained experts. We're able to know how to identify materials on sight. There's other things, tests that you could do, see how the fibers react to different chemicals or to fire or to different things. But from here, I'm now going into the inside of the suit, and we're going to just go around methodically and go and check all the 50 different locations. I'll make it look much easier than it actually is. But here, just as a regular standard canvas, this is called a front canvas. As you notice over here, there's dozens of threads. Some are all of irregular weave. Some are thick, some are thin, some have black, some are white, some are a mixture. Okay, and there's all different types of things. Sometimes there's several such canvases. Here, notice here, this one is a lot thicker than the rest. That one's a little thicker. So all these things really need to be identified. What we do is we pull out a random thread of each type. I'm identify it on site over here, but over here we could unravel one of the threads. And then here I could actually go down into the fiber stage. And there's actually one black thread that actually is blended in here. Now this one black thread, believe it or not, there's wool. There's usually wool in this thing over here. It makes it bounce. As you notice the fiber bounces. And that keeps that's one of the natures of wool. But it also allows the suit to be flexible. It drapes nicely. It doesn't wrinkle. This little black one little thing that's in there is actually a horsehair. Believe it or not. Here it is. There's one little, you can see that. There's one little black, that's a horsehair. Okay, and the horsehair from the horsetail, that's a ponytail. That actually makes a bounce also. Okay, so that's the rest of it is cotton, polyester, and a wool blend. As you see here, I'm just pulling apart. It doesn't affect the suit itself. I'm just pulling out a random thing. But this is in this type of method, we're going to be able to go through the whole inside of the suit to check it. Around the pockets, we want to reinforce the pockets. So they use all kinds of scrap materials, all kinds of different stitching here. Here's a piece of gray. There's stitching that goes all around that as well. There's a different lining over here. Now this looks like a very simple, summery type of material. So it's not nearly as lined as a regular full-length jacket. There will be many more places, but here now I'm going up to the shoulder area. And now here is the chest piece, the floating chest piece. You see it's much bigger. Now if you look carefully here, you'll see all kinds of foreign particles. There's orange, there's yellow, there's all kinds of things blended in here. Here's your mixed fibers again. Now, if I have any doubt, we would pull some of this out. We stick it under the microscope. There's another piece of orange. And all these things, all these different fibers would have to be identified. If it's a wool suit, we check for linen. If it's a linen suit, we would check for wool. In this case over here, this is made in Turkey. As it says over here, there is no label as far as the ingredients. So I'm checking for both, but the way I'm going to do that now to see if it has any wool. So I'm going to take a lighter, and I'm actually going to just pull out a thread here, and we're going to see how the fire reacts to the fiber. It's the inside again. It's not burning the outside. Just taking a random thread, and I'm going to see what's going to happen. Let's see the reaction to it. Okay, also see how it smells, see how the fire reacts to it. This is synthetic over here. There's no wool in this particular one over here. Okay, so I've just identified the outer fabric. Here's a little piece of glue. This is the seam this is actually cheaply made. They didn't even stitch it down, they just glued it down, which I now opened up. That's what you see, the glue residue over here. All right, and now we're going to just continue again methodically. Here's up to the lapel. Right on the lapel, when you have on the collar, there's a lot of wear and tear. So they might put a reinforcement, a tape underneath that. This one, again, because it's only half line, they didn't invest so much in the workmanship of this. Also, they have a dart which tapers the garment. In this case, they use a Pelon synthetic type of material for that. But sometimes they use scrap materials, and even from the right side to the left side of the same jacket, they use haphazard scrap materials. So again, that could be linen in a wool jacket, or it could be wool in a linen jacket, or it could be wool linen in the scrap material itself. Okay, around the armhole, here we go, here's the arm tape. This is the reinforcement I mentioned before, and this particular case, it's made out of a cottony synthetic material, so it's not linen or wool, so it's kosher, it's parv. Okay, and all right, we went through the side. Now here's the outer pocket. Now the pocket itself is lining the edges of the pocket that it shouldn't rip and get frayed on the side. They usually put a reinforcement over here as well. I'll turn that inside out. In this case, it's okay. Now here's the buttonhole. The buttonhole which accepts the buttons, these are also reinforced. There's a stitching, and then besides the actual stitch itself, of the buttonhole, there is sometimes, on the fancier suits, a gimp that actually goes on the inside, underneath that, to reinforce the entire buttonhole. In this case over here, we're checking it to make sure it's not linen. If you can see that a little bit, but maybe fan out the fiber. And there we have. Okay, let's just make sure it's not wool. No, that's synthetic, so it's good also. It's like a nylon thread. And now the button itself that it's sewn on with, you have to check the button thread itself. And this is a regular standard button thread. So it's a cotton or a nylon. I don't want to rip it, so it shouldn't fall off. So we just go to the back side and find the little stray parts anyway sticking up, and identify it that way. And this case is also, it's not linen. It's a kosher, the button was sewn on, okay. Now on the sleeve, sometimes there's also buttons, so we have to go there. Sometimes a button falls off and a tailor might sew on with a different button thread, so we have to check all the buttons, front and back and sides, wherever that might be. Check them as well, and that's good. All right, now, the most common place in the jacket is the collar, because there's a very strong pressure point. And you have all the weight of the jacket hanging on the pressure point, so they might reinforce the back of the collar with a piece of wool felt, reinforced with a piece of linen backing. So this is the most common scenario. If it has Shatnez, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Do not rely on tailors to remove the Shatnez. Only a trained Shatnez expert should do the Shatnez removal. If they leave out the residue, you won't be able to find it afterwards. Then you can put in a kosher cotton substitute. All right, so what I'm going to do here in this case, here's the collar. This is not a regular standard collar. But we're going to have to take a peek to see what's going on. I'm going to just break one stitch, and I'll sew it up again afterwards, just to see what's inside there. Oh, there we see there is a reinforcement. In this case, it was synthetic. It's not a piece of linen like in the collar that I just showed you. Just to that shouldn't come undone. I'll put a little stitch there to sew it up again. And this one is on the inside. You won't notice this anyways. Okay, we sewed it up. Also, all the tags, the name of the store, if there's an importing tag, you have to see what the tag itself is made out of. And then what is the stitching on that? Like I said, there's over 100 different types of materials that might wind up going on here also. Here's a dry cleaning tape. This happens to be a piece of paper, but we've had cases that the dry cleaning label was a piece of material, and they put linen, and they wrote the customer's name in a linen tag of dry cleaning, and they sewed it into a wool, into the wool suit afterwards. Made at Shatnez. Okay, so I'm just going to sew back the bottom where I opened it up previously, and we're coming to the home stretch now. In conclusion, and so far it looks like this suit will pass inspection, Baruch Hashem. That there's no wool and linen in the same jacket. The canvas, we said, did have wool inside, but there was no linen. So it's kosher. And as soon as we finish over here, we attach usually a non-Shatnez label, so the customer will know that it has been tested. They won't have to have it retested at a further date. The label looks something like this. Here's a non-Shatnez. There's the Shatnez center, and we'll put that in there. And so then the customer will know that it has been checked for Shatnez. All the mitzvahs of the Torah are very important, but every mitzvah has a segula. One thing about Shatnez is that Shatnez has the power of blocking our prayers from being answered. It blocks the tefillos. So it's very essential to make sure that we're not wearing Shatnez because it's the mitzvah of the Torah, number one, but also if we want Siyata Deshmaya, we want Hashem to protect us, we want our prayers to be answered, especially before Rosh Hashanah. That's why we came to the yeshiva, to make sure that the boys, Chas v'Shalom, are in Rosh Hashanah, and the Yom Noraim are not wearing Shatnez, so that their prayers should be able to answer.
Tell the story about the Mir Yeshiva.
So the famous story in the Mir Yeshiva in Europe, that there was in Shanghai, there was one of the boys was davening on Rosh Hashanah, and he was trying to get kavanah, arouse kavanah, and it just wasn't going for him. And he couldn't figure. He tried all different types of things, get a drink or whatever. It didn't go. Then he remembered this chazal. It's actually a Zohar. It says, that the prayers are blocked if you're wearing Shatnez. So he went out of the base medrash. He came back and he was wearing his weekday jacket instead of his yontif jacket. And all of a sudden he felt a surge, and this prayer started. He felt like a whole elevation. And then after yontif it was checked, and it turns out that he gave it to a tailor, and the tailor put in Shatnez or whatever, and he was unaware of it at the time. So so there's again, these are metaphysical phenomenon. By doing mitzvahs, we do it because Hashem said. We try to be loyal Jews. We use science and technology to figure out how we're going to become the Torah, not to ask questions on the Torah. But so that's why the field of Shatnez testing is very very scientific. It's very we have to be up on the latest. And always know, like I said, market trends and what's going on, and who's selling what, and who owns what, and why would they switch, and you always have to be up on the latest. So okay, so it's been a pleasure, having this talk with everybody, and so everybody should have a ksiva taiva. Hashem should answer our prayers, and we should be Bez Hashem will build the base of Mikdash. We're interested enough. The Kohanim in the belts of the big day Kahuna are walking around with Shatnez. So why? Because it goes back to the story of Cain and Hevel. Cain brought from Pri Ha'adamah. That means the ground, fruit of the ground, which Chazal say was the flax plant, and Hevel brought from the sheep, which is the wool. It's the first time in history that they couldn't get along with each other. There was machloket. There was bickery, there was fighting between brothers, first bloodshed, first war, and Hashem said we want to separate the clothing. But by checking, we want to go back now. Hashem said we want to separate the Cain and Hevel, even in clothing. We don't want it to come together. But we want to go back to prehistoric times, before there was machlokas, before there was that sinat chinam and unnecessary hatred. And the way to show that is in the big day kahuna, in the time of service of Hashem, in the base of Mikdash, everything has its place, and everybody can come back together, in its original source, and that's what we're hoping for. So we have the Gula Shlema b'Meirav Yameinu. Thank you very much.
And if anybody wants to contact Tuda Employer Services, can you give them some information?
Oh, sure. Okay, so you can reach me at Rabbi Yaakov Gurwitz, Gurwitz, and it's I have an email, Shatnez Rabbi. That's SHATNEZ Rabbi RABBI, one word, at gmail.com. That's the email, or you can reach me on WhatsApp or in Eretz Yisrael, plus 972 0. If you're calling from Chutz La'aretz, then you drop the 0. But if you're calling in Israel, it's 054 727 4461. So again, 972. Drop the 0. So 54 727 4461. And if another number you could also reach me is 0526 334417. And if anybody wants to know about the local Shatnez laboratory near them, so you could look online. We have the Vush Mahadran, or the International Network of Shatnez Testers and Researchers. The headquarters is in Lakewood, New Jersey, and there they have the international list. You can see according to cities where local. Unfortunately, there are a lot of unqualified people. They opened up a science book. They started just looking, but a lot of them are not accredited, and they don't really know the scientific things that are going into it. So, okay, thank you, and everybody should have a Besoros Tovus.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure.
Thank you.